Hello, this is that creepy bald guy. Welcome to another episode of Critiquing the Critics. Today's subject, General Lotz. General Lotz is sort of like Spazmaster in that he reviews pretty much whatever he wants. He'll tackle books, movies, and comics, but his main specialty appear to be retro video games. Thankfully, he isn't a complete cliche either, because he includes computer and arcade games in his reviews, which you don't see very often among the retro game reviewers. And while not exclusive, he does definitely have a soft spot for Alien, Predator, and Star Wars. He reviews comics, games, and books involving those subjects pretty frequently. He is a relatively obscure reviewer too, only recently crossing the 500 subscriber mark. So if he gets any subscribers because of me, I feel happy. Sort of like how happy I was that I was able to send traffic in Nerd with Words direction. And sort of like how I won't be very happy when Nerd with Words ultimately surpasses me in popularity. Let it be known, General Lotz, if you surpass me in popularity, I cut things off. But my favorite reason for reviewing him is that he is a very flawed but talented reviewer. There is a lot of good and bad to be said about him, which means I get to flex my critical muscle. Although, unfortunately, with the way these reviews are coming out, I am pretty flabby in that regard right now. But anyway, let's bring up the reviewer Triforce and figure out whether or not General Lotz is for you. Alright, so let's put a picture of him in the middle, signifying his delivery, and list the 3 major attributes of a reviewer. The focus is generally the information, and damn, his reviews are jam-packed with information. Sometimes maybe even too much information. He just doesn't tell you about the game's origins and context, although he gives a lot of that too. He'll often tell you how to play the game, and I've even seen him give out tips and cheats.
There really are a wide variety of levels that you have to complete, from Imperial bases to the inevitable sewer level. The sewer level here is pretty annoying. In order to progress, you have to raise the sewage level to a certain point. And of course, the switches are hidden in different areas. And if you screw up, you have to go to this large area that is referred to as the dark swimming pool. And in order to get out of that dark swimming pool, you have to use this sewage pump many times. That's really one of the main problems with returning to a game after 10 plus years. You remember how annoying a level was, but of course you don't remember how you solved it in the first place. So you get to figure it out all over again.
The critiquing is just as detailed. He focuses on the story, gameplay, character, and level design, with the latter being one of my favorite aspects of his reviews. If he's reviewing a comic or a book, he discusses how everything develops, from story to character, and he will even talk about the music when given the opportunity. Now, sometimes I do feel that his points haven't been thought out clearly, as he does make some daft claims and contradictions.
Usually you see games of this type first show up on a major console and not a handheld. But that is the case here, and surprisingly enough, this game is actually good. Like with AVP on the SNES, I only really recommend this game if you just want to collect the actual cartridge. Mainly because the game just is not that playable. It has a bit more depth than the AVP game on the SNES, because in that game all you did was just walk to the right and punch things, whereas in this one you actually have some puzzle solving elements. But still, this game is very tedious. You might have fun for like the first 5 minutes, but after you've had to replay a level 5 times, it gets old really fast.
But he does have one ability that I rarely see among reviewers. Now, everybody will do their best to be objective and subjective, describing the game's technical achievements and how they affect the player, but the General manages to combine the two in a perfectly cohesive way. He talks about one while talking about the other, and he does so masterfully. You have to see it to understand it.
One final thing I want to mention about the levels is the fact that some parts of it are destructible. See this wall? It's in the way, so smashy smashy time, boom, and now it's not.
It's excellent. He gets an arrow pointing up, signifying that he is really good in this regard. When it comes to delivery, you might find him to be a bit dry. He does sound rather monotone when he's describing the game, but he makes up for it with a really cool and memorable voice. Now, this sounds shallow when I say it, but trust me, a reviewer's voice can be their greatest asset because it allows us to remember you and add something to what you're saying. The Cinema Snob, for example, has a really iconic voice, and it also really helps that he sounds like a Cinema Snob. The General's accent sounds really unique, and it makes him sound sort of like a professor, giving weight to what he's saying. Now, for all I know, he's getting all of his information wrong, although I've yet to see any major complaints. In fact, of all the videos I've seen, and unfortunately I wasn't able to see all of them, I only noticed 2 complaints by the viewers. But it seems like most of his information is right, and he just has an air of authenticity about him when it comes to delivering information. He seems knowledgeable in his subjects, so I had no difficulty swallowing what he was saying. So the delivery mostly serves the information, and the arrow reflects that. Unfortunately, this leads to the humor. And this is where things become really iffy. He doesn't always try to be funny, but when he does, it feels to me like he's lifting from other reviewers. His jokes are mostly derived from guys like the Nostalgia Critic, Spoonie, and Linkara, and I always feel it's best to do your own thing, not someone else's thing, especially considering they are the best when it comes to being themselves. The jokes aren't bad, it's just that his delivery of them is pretty awkward. Lotz pauses in the wrong places, and his mugging can be described as a strange combination of wooden and campy, to the point where it makes Film Brain start to look like he actually has the ability to move the muscles in his face when you compare the two. It is possible that the attempts at humor are just experimental, like he's just seeing how good he could pull it off, and I will concede that I never groaned, and I sometimes even smiled. It's just that it's become a pet peeve for me when reviewers use other reviewers' brands of humor. So I'm going to have an arrow go down because of the delivery. The last point that needs to be made is how good the technicals are. They're really good, actually. The video and audio are pretty sharp, and the editing is even better. He often uses music to amplify the mood to much success. Sometimes he does seem unsure what he wants to put in there, this being really apparent whenever he puts video game footage in his book reviews, but I can understand why. Obviously, book reviews are really complicated when it comes to that kind of stuff. But the used footage is flawless, so that's good. I like the fact that his production values are strong, but never flashy or gimmicky. They help boost the credibility of his reviews while never distracting us from the reviews themselves. This is an attribute we can all learn to embrace. So how do I rate him? Well, there's a lot of good and a lot of bad, but I attribute the bad to him mostly just testing the waters. Also, he doesn't get a lot of feedback, so he might not realize that what he's doing isn't as good as he thinks it is. But I also want to, of course, make a point that humor is really subjective. You might find the guy hilarious. And I always make a point that it is far more important to listen to your fans, not some douchebag who makes video reviews. So the good ultimately does outweigh the bad, making him a solid 2.5-star reviewer in my eyes. I'm going to ask you that if his subjects intrigue you, please give General Lotz a look. He definitely deserves more than 500 subscribers. You might find him boring, but you also might find him interesting. And isn't the possibility of the latter worth checking him out? To check out his YouTube page or his website, just check the links in my description. My name is Marshall Horror, and I'm here to tell you that those who cannot do, critique.